job, guys. This is Frederik. We all know him. Some of us like him. Not everyone. And he's going to be doing a talk about Qt Quick controls. Again, the same thing. Some of us like it, some of us don't.
All right. I have my doubts about the liking part, but okay. Yeah. It's great to have you all here. I'm super happy to be at Akademy in Spain. I actually started my KDE journey in Spain a short while ago. But yeah. So my name is Frederik Gladhorn. You may have known that before. I do work at the Qt company. A great place to be at. Lots of fun. And we happen to spend a lot of our time, at least 90% of our time on Qt open source, the stuff that we are all using and we all appreciate and love and sometimes hate. Well, that's how it goes. So, yeah. I thought while the Qt Quick controls, the new iteration that we are currently working on are targeting embedded a lot, I still think there's a lot of relevance for KDE, and I kind of wanted to talk a bit about it so that people know what's going on, what we are thinking, why we're doing this, and maybe also discuss a bit with you if there are things that KDE wants to benefit from and how we can make certain things work nicer. So yeah, let's get started. 2005, I was in Madrid, and while looking at vocabulary applications, there was really only this one somewhat great application that was Kvoc which I ended up maintaining a while later. So that's how I started to become active in KDE. Because it had a combo box that at some point couldn't show me all my lessons anymore for my Spanish needs. So Spain is guilty. I did join Nokia then a bit later in 2010. Had a fun ride there. Many of you, all of you probably know the story. I'm not going to go into too much history here. Nowadays, we are the Qt company. Maybe not everybody is 100% sure what that is. So we are 100% owned by Digia, which gives us a bit more freedom. We don't completely fit Digia's portfolio because they are consultants and they do things in Finland, and we are much more international and we focus on Qt. No surprise there. I still do care a lot about accessibility. I have been driving that in Qt a lot. I really wish somebody would want to pick it up a bit in KDE more. And because actually in Plasma Next, it's almost ready to be used to go mainstream to attract a new user group. It's so close, so I could almost use Plasma Next blind. So, well, but enough about that. Lately I have spent a lot of time on QA things because getting patches into Qt is not always a smooth ride. And I'm also working with my team on driving Qt Quick forward, and one of the things we currently focus on a lot is Qt Quick controls, and how we think maybe they could be better than what we currently have in the set that we all love or hate, that Plasma is embracing. And I think the controls we have right now are really important. And they provide many things that people want. For example, they nicely adapt to the native looks. But we do have a lot of embedded, customers using embedded or low-end hardware. And for these, it's sometimes really hard to use those controls because they do eat a bit of memory, and using QStyle. I was discussing with a few of you. So Martin laughed and just said, yeah, you're insane trying to use QStyle in that API. So, and other people are less enthusiastic about new developments because they say, hey, give me working controls, that means they need to look native. So we'll just be bold and say, that's maybe something we want to question a bit. Yeah, I think in the original abstract I had written something about performance. I don't want to tell you how to optimize Qt Quick applications here today. So if that was your expectation, feel free to move on. I'm really sorry, but I think there are many people here that know that part better than I do, actually. You've worked with it a lot. I want to give a bit of an overview of what we have, what are Qt Quick controls. They are out there currently as a Qt Labs project. I assume we will get them into Qt 5.6 as a tech preview so people can play around with them before we make them final. And this is also something where I think it's great if we can get feedback from you guys, what is missing, styling, the API, and Nuno, who's being bugged there, he's set to destroy me and pound me to the ground and yes, make my life hell for doing the wrong thing. So we'll see how that looks. I want to, show a bit of a demo, and we will see what we end up with. So, we have this insane high-resolution screen with 800 by 600 pixels, which I didn't quite expect, so my text got a bit cut off, I'm sorry. Anyway, the big thing is, with the current set of controls, we actually instantiate a lot of objects, and allocations are not always the fastest thing and not the clevermost thing you do. And so if you instantiate one button and you end up with, I'm not 100% sure, but about 16 Q objects in various constellations, that takes time. So my dear colleague JP, he really sat down and actually he started by looking at Android and was wondering, okay, Android 5, how do we implement the style? And he basically concluded, whoa, this is a lot of work. We will be playing catch up forever. And we will probably fail because Android 6 is around by the time we get done. And so looking at this, he actually started in his spare time hacking a bit and looking at things, and did this tiny side project which is out there for people to play with, which is, I'm not sure what we call it, Qt Android controls or something like that. And that actually allows you to use native controls, which work surprisingly well with QML. There were experiments before with widgets in QML. So this is actually an interesting trend. And he saw that the performance is actually in many cases better than what we were offering with Qt Quick, and that's really got him started. And so he started to look at benchmarking and trying to see what we could potentially do. And you can see he ended up for a button or so, the time to instantiate it, having 5.7 milliseconds instead of 151. Does make quite a big effect on for users. If we now think KDE wants to go to phones and reconquer the world there, we probably do want some of that performance. So I do think that it's relevant for KDE also, even if we say we usually have big desktop machines and they have good performance, but still it's always nice to save a bit of memory and time, and it just makes everything better. So I don't want to hang around on that point too much. There's another point that is a question like, and I need to provoke Nuno a bit more. Is it a good idea to have everything in QML, right? QML is fun and it's easy to write and it's good to prototype, but sometimes there might be limits. The Qt Quick 1 controls, Qt Quick Controls 1, or Qt Quick Controls as commonly known, were built basically in only QML with JavaScript mixed in. And actually, even from our own people working in Berlin trying to do proper tooling, we got quite some criticism because it's really hard to do good tooling when you have something that embeds a tiny programming language that JavaScript happens to be. So in order to let them support the controls in Qt Creator, they would have to jump through some hoops and some more and try to pass JavaScript, and actually at some point the project just becomes insanely big when all you wanted is to be able to drag a button from somewhere onto a piece of canvas, right? So when we first discussed this with them, they were actually really happy that we were considering having a more strict separation of logic and doing the actual business logic in C++ and then using QML for what's visual, because that does make sense, and it's what initially was the intention of QML. So we took a big step back of trying to get the separation straight, and like the typical example is like the same game. That's a lot of JavaScript code, and in the end, it's not really the kind of application we want to write. We want to write good applications that are fast and use QML to express the UI. So this was a big motivation for us to do this experiment, which turned out to be actually working quite nicely. And it is still in the works, so now is a great time to still influence it. The whole styling and theming, there are discussions going back and forth. Should we expose Cube palette and let you have an application palette that gets inherited or not? There are many open questions, so I'm really also asking for input. But I wanted to show a bit what the current state is. So I just put a few random controls on the slide here, and well, they are not that exciting. Yeah, you can, of course, click a checkbox. And this is just the default style. So I think that's the big fear, that you will be stuck with this look because, well, JP just decided to have this flat look. It's relatively easy to implement for us, and that's what we started with. It looks okay in the modern times, but Nuno sometimes wants more flexibility. Okay, but yeah, this is kind of easily done, and I can just move on. So another big point is, oh my goodness, will Qt Quick controls go away because this is the replacement? And I'm very convinced that they will be around for a long time because they're convenient. They are what many people want to use, but for some use cases they just don't work well enough. And so that's why we really want to offer an alternative. So how do you make the decision? Do you use version 1 or 2? How should KDE, is it going to be a porting effort, like move everything from one thing to the other? And the answer is maybe you don't really have to choose, because you can just use them at the same time. So yeah, I just have a button from the good old controls here. I think that's the Fusion style because I have my own Qt build, and the new controls, and they just happily coexist. So there's no deal in mixing and matching them. The only thing you need to do is you need to import one of them with this S trick, so you get it in a namespace, because we do want to call the new button also button. We don't want to do weird namespacing there. So, yeah, our poor designers, Nuno's suffering and crying. What is he going to do? So when doing this, we took a step back, and actually writing the business logic of button is maybe not the hardest thing in the world, but doing proper mouse handling and so on, it accumulates. And when you start implementing a slider, oh my, we still had bugs in our slider after 2 years, I believe. So some things are really hard to do in QML, actually. You get binding loops, and yeah, it's possible, and you can keep on reinventing stuff that works well enough for a certain application, but we want to provide something that just works. So I was thinking to to show you a bit how we think this could be solved. I would just write a bit of a custom look, and Nuno's going to hate me even more because actually it's going to look horrible because I'm doing the designer doing style thing. But maybe we can later get together and he can try to implement the way he wants things to look. So let's just see how does it work. Wait, this was not what I wanted. So how do I get out of there? Yes. So I gave myself a lot of chaos here, it seems. Yes, no, why? Oh, okay, I wanted to start with a blank canvas to not steal my own show. And then I thought, okay, let's, do the basic thing. So if I want to have a button, surprise, I'm going to write button and give it some text. I can't type, obviously. Then let's just put it up there, and hey, it somewhat works. This is the great, glorious green button that we've seen before, and so the question is now, how do I have any influence on the visuals, right? So what we came up with is that it's quite performant if you just have visual items. A normal item, not a component, but a plain old item will be just instantiated when it gets passed, and the whole thing is not a huge problem. So I can, for example, set a background property. Background, and that should be, because I'm lazy, just a rectangle. And then let's give it some, color. What's a beautiful color? I had some random stuff here picked out earlier. Horrible, horrible. Poor Nuno, he'll have to suffer this. And there I have actually changed the background part of the button, and I can of course do the usual fun things of doing radius and giving it some roundness. And then I can also replace the text part, which is just a default convenience thing. Instead I can say label shall be text element, and oops, yeah, what? Almost good. So it is actually possible with this approach of having sort of delegates to do a very custom style that looks different. And of course now we, for now, lost the behavior completely. So when I click this button, nothing seems to happen because obviously I didn't tell it how to change the visuals. So let's just check if it does anything at all. On click, for example, I could do rotation. Very silly example, but it demonstrates, hey, my button is actually working, and it just behaves the way it's supposed to. So if I wanted to implement a bit more fancy things like press state, I need to give it an ID. And then I can do, if the button is pressed, I give it one color, and else I give it something else. Nuno, what do you want? What's your favorite hex value? Light steel blue.
Yes, very good. Yeah.
Let's see if that... Oh my goodness, it's so gray here. I don't know what happened. I don't know. It's probably very beautiful, and on this projector it's even better. So perfect. So this is our current thinking on styling, and of course it could. I just need to find one. Wait. So then we of course don't need a color, and we do not have a radius property, and then we do source.
So the radius doesn't work.
On images, does it?
The radius only works for. It's kind of weird.
see, I don't write QML full everyday life, so what did I have there? I didn't quite know. Did I have, well,
It was right. Okay, it's right. Now I get it. Yeah.
oh, I don't, so let's see, oh, did I mistype it? No.
No, anyway, I got it.
So generally it would work without trouble. Yeah, let's figure out why it doesn't work now. So this is, yeah, pretty straightforward how you can style custom things. And now for the slider implementation, for example, this is cumbersome, right? And there, I think it's actually really, it might even be very attractive to you because you can do pretty easy things. So if I put my slider there, then, well, that's no big deal. And then I want to have the handle look different, for example. Then I just do handle, and here I can put the rectangle because that's all I know how to do. You do the proper design. And then I have height and width. It's going to be the biggest handle ever if I do 30. And then I need to cheat because I somehow didn't manage to learn by heart. But this is actually part of the documentation that we have at the moment, that it tells you, okay, if you want to make the handle appear in the right position, this is how you can do it, unless you want to do special magic. Oh yeah, and then I could also give that rectangle a color. Light steel blue. I got the message. So my extremely beautiful slider, is it working? No.
It's really cursed too.
Okay, why is it not working? Probably I messed up something. I have a backup slider here. Should we use a backup? That's before I make a clown of myself completely. Live coding sometimes is just horrible. So somehow this magic slider here does work more. I don't know. What did I change? The color. The color can't be it. Come on. Yeah, I don't have the ID. Okay, let's revive the first ugly slider and replace the beautiful second one with that. Thank you. It's always good to have an attentive audience. Okay, let's see if... okay, so I still need to work on my slider, but I don't think doing a slider from scratch in QML has ever been that fast. So part of what we imagine this to be is also that it's a terrible, no, it's a kind of way of how you can build your components, and that enables you to easily do some of those things that have traditionally been hard in QML. So we can even look at the implementation. Oh, this screen resolution is just, I don't see anything. So this is also the completely wrong thing. So what we do internally is actually we just have this, I love it. Okay, can you see anything? I am not sure if I can. So basically what we have is two things. We have a slider.qml file, which actually is used to instantiate the normal slider you see. And then on the inside we have abstract slider here, and we have the same for all the controls. Slider is just the one I like to pick on today. And that one, the abstract slider is actually the thing that's written in C++, and we nicely hide that from the user, so you'll never have to see it. And then we just do all the right things, hopefully, and if you don't like them, you can nicely replace them. So, for example, the handle here, this is what we have been fiddling around with. So this is a way of doing a pretty lightweight, pretty flexible, stylable, themable control set. So Yeah, that is our thinking at the moment. And as said, there are huge question marks. So I'm very curious about your opinion of, is this sensible? Would KDE want some of this? And how can we use it? And of course, it's troublesome in that there is no good way to make this work nicely with the old approach of using QStyle, because that is just turning out to be so hard that we don't really even want to try supporting it in here. We want to do this clean start. But if I look at Plasma, you already have custom themes, so there it feels like this might be actually a nice fit. I don't quite know, I haven't thought about it too much, so yeah. Do you want a mic? Yeah, master of the mic, Vishesh. I caught him sleeping, isn't that cool? Applause for our helper. Oh, he's taking notes, sorry. Nice one. Marco.
Yes. Would I like to use them? Yes. Depends on several things. Probably 1 billion questions that we probably
Cool.
also talk about them later. But two things. With the styles and in this way, then it becomes mandatory. It's not possible anymore to do a style and then style the existing set, but you have to basically subclass everything, right?
Yeah, that is one of the things we have been wondering, and so what we imagine right now, if you are actually building a platform, then you would not take our default components but ship your default things in there. So I don't think it scales indeed to replace every single controls implementation one by one. That's not what we want. So either you create your own subclasses, kind of your own something files that you can then import in a different namespace or something like that.
Yeah,
Or you
with Plasma, the controls at the moment are already, for historical reasons, as a class of Qt Quick Control 1. So in theory, it would be quite easy to then make them as a class of Qt Quick Control 2. If the API has been as close as possible, then it should be magically works.
okay? We should try it maybe.
We can try that.
The API has been kept as much compatible as possible, but there were some radical simplifications. So for example, when looking at the scroll area, we found it's a hugely complex beast, and it might be easier to just have a normal flickable and have a very easy way to attach the scroll bars. So I think there the API has actually changed. Also for the tab bars, I think it's a bit different. So some things have definitely changed. The basic API asset is as compatible as possible, but the more complex widgets, also the stack widget, has slightly changed. So yeah, we can look into it.
Maybe even mix them possible. We still have things like the tab bar. We still have our limitation that is as the idea of the video components.
Yeah, yeah. So that's really one of the troubling things, that we now have actually quite a few different. Ubuntu has their own set, and we have now our second one because we hope this is the next step in evolution. But yeah, we're all trying to stay close to the API, but when it's conceptually a different way of composing the controls, then the old API often doesn't make sense anymore. Yeah. So, oh yeah, that was my last slide also. How are we time-wise? Oh,
One question.
we have time for one question. So, and also the shameless plug, by the way, if you can imagine working in Oslo on fun things, or in Berlin.
So hi, if I use the Qt Quick Controls tool, I would still get stuff like platform menu and everything. So if I have like a combo box, doesn't matter what it looks like on iOS, I will get a pickup view and an Android a pop-up view and everything. So that won't change for you.
We don't have many of the more platform-specific controls at the moment because right now we want to provide a set that fits the more simple UIs. So you can use the controls once picker and such. At the moment in the Control 2 set, as said, it's not finished. It's far from release. 5.6 is where we aim to have a tech review. There is just nothing there at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Right, that's it.
Yes. So, thank you.